Thank you, everybody, for the attention, the invitation, and for being here and listening. So I will bring to the discussion two issues that are related. One is the issue of sustainability, and the other is complexity bias. So we all know that all the therapies that we develop tend to be expensive. And this, for society, it might be a problem. Let's assume that we arrive to a goal that we can increase X number of years of full, happy, and healthy life years to our life. And now we have a therapy that gives to all society. How cheap has to be that therapy to be able to be deployed? So the numbers scale up very rapidly. So we do have a problem in technological development for health or for enhancement, depending on the definition we give to that, in terms of sustainability for society. And there is an interesting, let's say, this complexity bias that I introduced is in the literature, is in our way of doing, developing technology and doing science. We tend to develop more efficacious, more sophisticated, and more expensive technologies. There is much less representative research that a priori is going toward less expensive technologies for solving the same problem. And this is sort of a cognitive bias of ourselves, a person, and is a global bias as society. And I am definitely involved in developing complex and more effective and more expensive technologies. I'm co-founder of a startup that is trying to bring to the market closed-loop DBS for Parkinson disease and other disorder. That goes definitely in that category. But I'm also developing a technology that try to be sustainable from the very beginning. So I'm definitely in the field of brain stimulation, so I take all the information that has been given to you so far as part of this field. And of course, you have the two big separation, right? Invasive brain stimulation, non-invasive brain stimulation. So invasive brain stimulation, I think DBS, deep brain stimulation, is an example of a success case. For Parkinson disease, it's spectacular, the effect and the efficacy of deep brain stimulation in patients with Parkinson disease. So what is the problem? The problem is the invasiveness of the therapy. Well, the good part is that once it's implanted, the patient goes home, fully portable, almost not at all, but almost independent on the neurologist that just need to see the patient every once in a while to see that everything goes well. On the other hand, on the other extreme, we have non-invasive brain stimulation. Let's consider transcranial magnetic stimulation, approved for depression, for example, by the FDA. And at least in Spain, for example, you don't see virtually any TMS done on patients. Why you don't see it? Well, we can discuss about how technology can actually reach or don't reach the patient. Surely one of the problems is that unless you have your TMS round the corner of your house, it becomes time-consuming for the patient and for the structure to have these long, weekly, daily, for weeks session until to reach efficacy. So non-invasive, good, non-portable. So the ideal thing would be to have a brain stimulation technology that brings the good of both parts, right? So non-invasive, but portable. And this is what we are trying, and since I didn't bring a slide presentation, I followed the suggestion for going without PowerPoint, with the freedom from the slides. I brought the actual technology because it's a really simple one. It's this thing. So the idea is about a little more than a decade ago. The idea is that, the original idea is from Antonio Oliviero, is a colleague neurologist at Hospital Nacional de Parapléjicos. I remember perfectly the day that he came and he said, "What do you think? We put a static magnet on the head. Will we be able to modulate cortical excitability?" And I look at him and say, "Okay, let's do it, and then we talk." And then I realized it's a fantastic idea, because a static magnet is is the DC version of magnetic field, right? The DC version of the electric field existed, is direct current stimulation. So the DC version of the magnetic field is a static magnet, and the static magnet is the same type of magnet that you have on your fridge, just bigger and more and stronger. So we did a series of experiments in healthy subjects showing that the application of a static magnet of the motor cortex decreases cortical excitability as measured by motor evoked potential amplitude. We did a series of experiments showing that the static magnet applied to the visual cortex decreases cortical excitability as shown by an increase in rest rhythm, like the alpha rhythm. Same thing in the somatosensory cortex. We also did experiment with resting state MRI showing that you can modulate the activity below the magnet. And and we also developed the technology, because at that moment we were conscious about this need to translate the technology to patient. If we really wanted that to happen, we needed to go in parallel with science, so demonstrated physiological and then clinical effect, and with the development of the technology. And this, as you can see, is very, very easy. I can easily make the show and put it on. It's as simple as this. And now I have my brain stimulation on the motor cortex. This is the design for motor cortex. For total disclosure, this is a sham version. I have a placebo on me, but is very easy to implement. So, and I've been working especially on the Parkinson disease field, and where we did the first clinical trial in randomized double-blind in patients with dyskinesias. So they are involuntary movement caused as a side effect by long-term dopaminergic therapy. And in 50 patients, it's curious because we asked the patient, do you want to do it at home or you wanted to do it in the clinic? All but one patient preferred home-based treatment. We didn't meet the primary outcome, which was the objective measure of dyskinesia. We did meet the secondary outcome, which was the subjective perception of the patient about the treatment. Other groups are doing a clinical trial with our helmets. There is a very interesting work done in ALS. There is a strong rationale that over-excitability of the motor cortex is excitotoxic for motor neurons and is part of the complexity of the process of the neurodegeneration of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And they've published a spectacular pilot study in few patients showing in open a very nice reduction of the speed of neurodegeneration. A clinical trial has been conducted, not by us, so I do not have the results. We are waiting to the result of this clinical trial in 40-patient placebo control. There is a study by some Japanese that showed in a randomized crossover design some in patients with subacute stroke, some improvement in dexterity. So it's sort of, in this case, the enhancement is enhancement of the neurorehabilitation. So it's always, when we think about the enhancement, I have to say, we always think it in terms of therapeutic enhancement so far. So that has a positive primary outcome published just recently. And with the same logic of ALS, I'm trying to pursuing the direction of Parkinson's disease. I've published this new cortical pathogenic theory, according to which the same top-down logic in terms of excitotoxicity or toxicity in general could come from the cortex as one of the possible factors contributed to the neurodegeneration. So if that is true, and we are testing it in animal models, then decreasing cortical excitability with this technique can be tried as a disease-modifying therapy. And of course, the advantage of this, which goes very well in the direction of having home-based treatments, home-based treatment can go for very long. And if you want to think to a disease-modifying therapy, it cannot be weeks, has to be months to years type of treatment. So I think it's a strong direction. It's a simple direction. It's Occam razor of non-invasive brain stimulation. Let's try to make things as simple as possible, unless we need more complexity. Of course, I'm not against the complexity, and see where the path brings us. Thank you very much.